Hello, I'm Gaia Orion, and I welcome you to another discussion about art for a peaceful and flourishing world. Today, I'm really happy to interview Sperry Andrews. He's an artist, but he's foremost a scientist and founder and director of the Human Connection Institute. In collaboration with scientists and film producers, he's working on creating easily accessible experiences of oneness to facilitate a unity experience to anyone willing to participate. Sperry's has been giving presentation on human interconnectedness and his institute's projects at the United Nations, World Business Academy, and many universities and research associations across the US. I invite you now to listen to our discussion and join us in the field that Sperry's transmits so well through sharing his experiences and visions for global awakening. On the morning of our interview, I woke up with a dream which showed me that we had already started to connect telepathically, and this is how we started our conversation. Last night, I had this amazing dream. I'm not a water person, and I don't think I've ever been in water like I was in my dream last night. But there was, in one part, this flock of dolphins that were just swimming above me and my family. We were swimming in the deep ocean. And then this morning I went on your Facebook page and you have this like exactly what was in my dream as a Facebook profile. So that was pretty interesting. So when we're going to be talking about, your whole project around the human connection and the oneness experiences, and I thought it was really beautiful how before I get online to talk with you that I'm already experiencing that, you know, co- connection that is going through the ether before I meet you.
Yeah. Yes, I feel that we're very telesomatic naturally, that most animals are. They need to be in order to survive and detect friends and foes, or predators and prey. Uh, and that humans have gotten overly focused on what they think about what they feel and sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have even Freud, Sigmund Freud of all conservative people, said that we were originally telepathic and we lost that because of focus on language and conceptual meanings. You're a very sensitive artist and very open to the totality, as am I. And so I imagine that we have pretty clear lines of transmission to merge and access our combined insightfulness and sensitivities.
I agree with you that I'm a sensitive person and open, and most artists are more naturally inclined to be so. It doesn't prevent me to feel some awe and excitement every time that happens.
Well, I think that's the joy of being consciousness, is that we're excited about being awake and alive, vitally interested and insightful, and because at the level of form, everything is incomparably, infinitely unique each and every instant. And at the formless level, we're the same indivisible, witnessing, mirror-like consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So we being aware of awareness as a meditative consciousness.
I have so many questions that I want to ask you, and there are so many subjects that we could, share together. I'd like if we could try to focus a little bit on the art side and your experience as an artist and how that connects with your work with
Sure.
awakening our world and global enlightenment. But maybe I think it'd be important if you could share with the listeners your experiences, like your actual like life experiences. You had a couple thing that happened to you. One, I think at 4 or 5 years old, you had an out of body experience. And then when you're a young adult, something else happened. If you could give us like the short version of what happened, and then we will refer to the links where you share in videos and in different articles about those experiences. I think it will kind of set the ground for everything that you've been doing in your life and for this discussion.
Well, actually, I had a nobody experience of being without a body, heart, or mind, as pure formless awakeness. It was unbounded and timeless, and there was no reaction. It was just this witnessing, deathless consciousness that was unbounded and ever present. There was a sense of being somehow not an experiencer. There was no self. There was just this colorless light of awakeness that you might imagine something that was, even though it was unimaginable, of being suspended in the night sky without any stars or planets, an infinite extent, as though that was all that I was. And there was no I, but there was just this mirror-like awareness of awareness itself, which later I found out, much later, that yogis and sadhus and sages have advocated for thousands of years. That if one can be aware, become aware, conscious of awareness, and have conscious awareness, or awareness is aware of itself, then there is this, like a mirror, like our mirror in the bathroom, we can receive and reflect what we imagine and feel and sense without reacting, without contracting, without making it into something more than it actually is. So in a sense, we can be the dreamer in our own dream without really believing in the dream. We can enjoy the dream in all its infinite forms, but we are not controlled or limited by the dream. And we can actually, by being aware of awareness together, because this awakeness, which I experienced, I found through working with thousands of people for over 40 years internationally, through experiential explorations in groups. I found that everybody shares the same awakeness. We all utilize it as the very anchor or constants, the only constant in the whole of consciousness. And by being aware of it together, we can access our combined intelligence and emotions and sensations in a fully embodied way. So I realized through this that this is how nature has designed us to evolve and awaken, to access our combined intelligence as a species, to get over this sort of eat or be eaten and kill or be killed territorial psychological polarization that we're especially suffering now, that could end really human life on Earth. But I don't think that's going to happen. I'm quite certain that we are in the process of awakening and becoming awake and aware together as a species, and I relate to that as a form of global enlightenment, if you will. And as it said, it's darker before the dawn, and we're sort of in the midst of great darkness right now.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to mention that as we're talking, we're right in the middle of this COVID-19 lockdown all over the world. So we can talk about those dark times before the awakening if we want to see the world as such. With what you mentioned, I remember when I was reading some of your articles that you mentioned a study by Maslow that went and saw about 40 different cultures. They found out that 68% of the population reported having oneness experience, but only 23% talk about it. I think that was a really significant number. That when you're a mystic or a meditator, when you practice non-dual awareness, no matter which affiliation or practice you may use or bring into your life, there is a sense sometimes, I think, when you're just starting on the journey, that you are the chosen one, that those are really unique experiences. But then when you look at this number, 68%, and when you look at the work that you're doing with the Human Connection Project, what you're saying is that we all have access to that, and that actually people can access it really quick if you facilitate the experience, and maybe even enhance when is it in a group context. Do you want to talk to us about that, about your work with the Human Connection Project?
Well, the first part is that yes, it's immediately accessible. All we need to do, and it's especially easier in a group, because people feel safe in a group, and there is a greater magnitude of present moment awakeness to be aware of uh, as a group of people. And there are certain numbers of people. Even 3 people is better than 2 in some ways, because we're not used to merging into pure consciousness as a threesome. We're more used to finding our beloved as another or as our child one-on-one. And then there's sort of competition of who gets to be the one and share undivided attention, which is experienced as unconditional love. So when we're aware of awareness together and we're sharing undivided attention, there is this sense of unconditioned consciousness, which is what I experienced when I was in my near-death experience, and in many thousands of others and experiences, which have led to a more constant, seamless state of being aware of awareness. Today, I'm almost 70 now. What I found in these groups with thousands of people internationally over the last 40 years is that, yes, we can access our combined sensitivity. But the step 2 is that this is a neurological and psychological shift, which causes our dendritic structures to actually almost literally become uprooted and rerouted. And it could be tiring to undergo this psychophysiological transformation. And if our boundaries have been violated as children, or we've had traumas where we felt the loss of love, which we depended upon for our very survival, the undivided attention of our caregivers. So love is necessary for our survival, literally, being able to share a commonly sensed intelligence in a fully embodied way with one or more other people, our mother or father, or whoever our caregivers were. So when we are brought back to this unitive state of shared embodied awakeness, and we have undigested traumas that we have disowned and suppressed into our musculature and our emotional nervous system, this being awake in an undivided way brings these traumas back to the surface to be digested, because we've had indigestion, if you will. Trauma is really undigested experience. It's experience that we have delayed or put aside so that we can continue to feel positive about who and what we are, while our unconscious psychophysiology remains responsible for ultimately reintroducing that which we have rendered unconscious or suppressed into unconsciousness to our so-called conscious mind, which is only about 3 to 5% of our neurophysiological psychology. So who we think we are and what we think we're doing is only a byproduct of this neocortex, our new brain, which is like the new child on the block. It's a, it is literally not as mature as our nonverbal, uh, more developed reptilian and mammalian sensory motor and emotional nervous system, brain systems. So our maturation is really dependent upon getting the new brain, this conceptual verbal analytic feature, to regard what is non-verbally felt and sensed with equal interest, with using that which is primordial, that which is prior to sensory and emotional and mental processes, which is really originating in the very creation of space and time, energy and matter, which led to the development of mind and body. We go back to this sense of indivisibility that allows for space and time, energy and matter, mind and body to be recombined in fresh and unique ways. In some sense, in physics, we can see that it's happening billions of times a second. So we are being recreated by how we pay attention and what we pay attention to, not only individually, but indivisibly together. So that's number two. And then number three is basically this integration of all of this at a so-called conscious level, where we're aware of having all this sensory information and emotional responses and conceptual mapping of what we non-verbally sense and feel, and we're all doing that collectively, not only just with the people around us, maybe with our beloveds that we hope to be able to trust infallibly, which we always not necessarily can't, unless we are sharing undivided attention and unconditional love. And so it seems almost impossible at this point in human history that all 7.5 billion people could actually successfully learn to share undivided attention in a fully embodied way and integrate their bodies, hearts, and minds as a species so that we can access our combined intelligence and stop all this warring and human insanity, basically. But the Human Connection Project is actually designed to successfully and rapidly bring about collective enlightenment through alerting mass populations through science, scientific demonstrations of our indivisibility on instrumentation, when we appear to be thousands of miles apart on the surface of the planet, and actually experience that in the realm of consciousness, which has been proven now again and again in science, that consciousness is not divided by space or time, energy or matter, mind and body. It is an indivisible aspect of what in physics we talk about as the fourth dimension of space. It's actually that which is spaceless and timeless originally, acting to unite the whole of three-dimensional reality. So what we experience as length, width, and depth, you and me, this and that, here and there, all the infinite variety of life in its evolution, at another level, it is non-dimensionally indivisible as this single consciousness. And by being aware of awareness, we access this level of integrity, and we can heal our wounds, our traumas, digest them consciously by witnessing and experiencing them in a fully embodied way, rather than denying them or suppressing them. And it's challenging, it's very confronting. We need to accept and allow who and what we are to be exactly as we are without making any effort to escape or avoid the truth in that sense. So that saying of know the truth and the truth will set you free is very relevant here.
Yeah, and also, I mean, from my own experiences, the more you awake to this indivisible nature of life, the more you see the truth, you also see like all the truth. And I'm glad you talk about that, about how you actually, see it all. You see the pain, you see the trauma, you see, and often people in spiritual domain or term, they, really emphasize how we awaken, or maybe it's us that imagine that we will be free of all of that, but it's just no, you actually, like, it's a real seeing, and I'm really grateful for how you're presenting that. It's a really important, and takes a lot of courage and responsibility once you awaken.
Yes. I remember in my 20s having tried to adapt after my near death experience to how other people were paying attention and valuing and imagining themselves of who they thought they were, what they thought they were doing, and
Hmm.
trying to take that way of behaving and experiencing and alongside what other people were doing, so that I could understand them and be able to relate to how they were valuing their
Mm-hmm.
lives and so on. And it really didn't work for me. It was it wasn't just trying to do what other people were doing was imposing a very intense fragmentation and disowning of my true nature.
Hmm.
And then I had to heal myself of having made that adaptation. But it was, of course, as is everything, a great teacher, and I learned so much from being myopic and narrow-minded about
Hmm.
how to be as a human being with other people. But I'm reminded in this, what we're talking about right now, of Carl Jung, the beloved uh, psychologist who had to really step away from Sigmund Freud's uh, brilliant but also very limited and limiting way of seeing things uh, in order to understand the collective unconscious and how it could be made conscious. And Carl Jung said, I'll paraphrase one of his famous statements, which I think is relevant here, is that in the process of maturation, the individual ultimately realizes that they are indivisible from everyone and everything.
Hmm.
And when more of us realize this, we have a chance of having a conscious civilization on this planet.
Yeah, Carl Jung really opened a whole, I mean, like a whole door that human collectively had no idea existed. Like, it's hard to imagine life without understanding, without that understanding, without that whole like understanding of unconscious, of that material that exists. You said what, 3% of how
Yes,
we
a
behave
so-called conscious
is
mind.
conscious.
Yeah,
Well, he really opened the door to the 97%, and that
yes,
interconnectedness to this collective unconscious that like didn't even exist, that concept before, or maybe in Buddhism.
yes, of course, it's been there in
Hmm.
Buddhism all along, and
Hmm.
Hinduism, so forth.
Yeah. I've seen in the Human Connection project that you were working on creating transformative films, and so because also you're an artist, I wonder like what you sense about how art can be, used as a catalyst, can be part, like us artists or the art world as a, the global art community. How do we help move this global enlightenment forward with our art?
Well, I know for me personally, Gaia, and I imagine it must be also the same for you, we're orchestrating and organizing our undivided attention by painting, in this case, or making music, or making love, or exercising. When people suffer from various illnesses, if they don't buy into the fact that, oh, I'm an ill person, and they begin to practice undivided attention and doing something that will captivate and their enthusiasm and creativity, they can actually spontaneously heal themselves of all manner of problems, even just by what they believe. That's my friend, dear friend Bruce Lipton, has pioneered the field of epigenetics. And so we see that what we believe orchestrates and organizes our attention to make it more integrated and synergistic. And the opposite of entropy, which is dissipation, is syntropy. We actually create order by how well we pay attention and what we pay attention to, and especially attention to attention, sharing undivided attention of this awakeness that is the only constant in the whole of consciousness, through art, through music, through film. And one of the ways, so I'm doing this through film and social media, is that I've been studying for maybe 15 years now and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on studying how effective this can be, is that we can actually, by breaking the fourth wall, so-called, where the people in pre-recorded form in the movie and an ensemble cast who are in unity consciousness and really sharing this indivisible body, heart, and mind, we're totally relaxed and lit up and turned on about being in unity consciousness with each other, can encounter people in the film who are realize how they can enter into that with the ensemble cast. And breaking the fourth wall means to look for the actors to look into the camera lens together, individually or as in twos or fours or threes or whatever, or by six people all together, three men and three women who are in this deep state as a collective, looking into the camera together and talking to the audience and saying, "Hey, you there," without the audience knowing who we're really pointing to. Do you sense what you're feeling, and sensitively sharing with the people to your left or right, or the person behind you, or the person in front of you? And of course, everybody in the audience wonders, like, are they talking to me, or,
Mhm.
and so they start paying attention to what are they feeling and sensing with people around them. And in 90 to 120 minutes, we can get the entire audience to be sensing that this indivisible embodied awakeness as a single indivisible consciousness. And people, from my experience of 40 years with thousands of people, people begin to feel like they've always known each other. Everybody's had that feeling where they met somebody, they felt like they've always known them. Well, that can happen for total strangers, I've found. And so audiences of 200-300 people, like batch processing, each audience that experiences this transformation of how they're paying attention and how well they're paying attention individually and indivisibly together can have experiences of collective unity consciousness and access to their combined intelligence. And when they leave the theater, like, look into each other's eyes and just know, non-verbally, in a fully embodied way, wow, we are one. We are one body, heart, and mind. We're not just a separate, self-isolating individual who is hungry and starving for feeling more love and more unity and more interconnectedness in our lives. But we are actually able, in the space of 90 to 120 minutes with total strangers, begin to not feel subway consciousness, which often is what happens in movies. Everybody sits in their own seat, isolated from each other. But we can use film, which naturally is designed to hold our undivided attention, to bring people into unity consciousness and enlightened states, literally, in a very short space of time.
So what you're trying to explain that is that with really thorough, well-researched scientific base, you are bringing those evident truths into a cast of actors or celebrities or people that want to be part of that, and that cast itself is charged with that interconnection, and you're creating a transformative movie that will transmit that experience, that shared experience to the audience, and carry them. That experience is like it stays with you for a lifetime, and you want more of it because there's no better state than being in touch with that or being awakened. So that's how you're using the art to the service of this global awakening. So we're talking about the art from the sense of like creating the art, sharing the art, receiving the art.
Well, when we look at one of your paintings, we're transfixed, our attention, our undivided attention is held, and we feel, oh my goodness, I mean, someone, Gaia, put this together uh, out of her deep feelings and sensory intelligence and inspired, you know, vitality to communicate her sense of our communion in nature with all creatures and all people. And so it's so inspiring to see an artist like yourself to for people. And if people feel that other people are doing this in front of them in a pre-recorded film, it's very similar. If you meet somebody who's awake and alive and enthusiastic and lit up and turned on, it ignites that ability in yourself, because that is also your innate ability to be uh, undivided in relationship to everyone and everything. So it's very easy to turn that on if that's what our focus and intentions are. If we're lit up and turned on about sharing indivisibly, our indivisible individuality,
Mm-hmm.
then not just a separate individual, but we are also an indivisible individual, which is what Carl Jung was talking about. And we can demonstrate that, and we can bring audiences, viewing audiences, viewers in audiences, to actually participate in this shift of awareness, to begin to deliberately notice, be inspired to notice their indivisibility from all other individuals. This, we can turn a corner, just like opening a door, and like in Plato's cave, instead of being chained to look only at the shadows of life, we can instead take off our shackles and come up out from underground into the light of day, and breathe fresh air and go like, oh my goodness, nature is magnificent. How inspiring. I mean, from a little boy, I felt like, wow, how could people, millions and millions of people for thousands of years, be exposed to the magnificence of nature and not be awakened to their union with the magnificence of this indivisible wholeness and holiness and sacredness of indivisible life.
Yeah.
Why hasn't life itself been able to awaken?
When it's so
Well,
evident to
what
you,
I
you
found is,
yeah, you wonder why, but why is there? Yeah. So what I
so
hear is that you're inviting us to take responsibility in creating this shared experience for everyone around us. And if we artists, like a lot of the listeners are for this podcast specifically, um, if we can, encourage people to work on themselves, put their art out there, trusting that when it comes from, if you're someone that know what we're talking about today, then trust that your art, when you put it out there, is truly transformational and what we need in those dark times. I don't like to say dark, but transformative times.
hmm, well, darkness actually proves to be the source of light. That which is
True,
dimensionless
true.
is prior to light. I mean, when we look out in the Hubble Space Telescope, we see these sources of brilliant beauty. I mean, each galaxy is like the most magnificent flower.
Yeah.
Only it has billions of suns and trillions of planets, and it has emerged out of the utter blackness and emptiness of space. Because emptiness, when there's a because the majority of space is like whatever 9 99.999999999, I don't know how many nines it is, it's a lot of nines, is empty space. All that emptiness coalesces at every point, every dimensionless point, which is a process centered location, coordinate location in the whole of space time. So the whole of space time, being indivisible from every other dimensionless point, is by gravity as well as electromagnetism in another way, as a kinetic phenomena. All of space-time, energy, and matter, mind, and body is united at every single point, dimensionless point in the universe. And so the power of all the universe being concentrated in every single point allows for this creation of what's called sonoluminescence at the most fundamental of levels. And we have light being created out of absolutely nothing whatsoever, except this coalescence of the whole universe at every single point. And so every point is instantaneously, indivisibly woven with all other points, and we have the accelerating expansion of this cosmos and the evolution of form out of formlessness.
Mhm.
So we are unborn and uncreated as formlessness, which takes form only because of form as what we experience as consciousness, that which unites all forms. But that which unites all forms is actually this primordial formlessness, which is unborn and uncreated and immortal. It's our immortal
Mhm.
spirit, if you that form by forming and reforming and being recreated by us, by how we pay attention and what we pay attention to individually and indivisibly together in groups and as a species. We are participating in the recreation, the play of Leela, the recreation of creation.
Mm.
Creation created us to be recreators of creation. And we are recreating creation in incomparably, infinitely unique ways as immortal beings who cannot die, who are deathless consciousness, which
Mm.
is absolutely extraordinary. And so the more we say that in the sadhus and sages and yogis, they say that if you can die in life to the limited and limiting ego that you believe yourself to be, and you realize your immortal nature as formless consciousness, as the emptiness, as the Hindus and the Buddhists say, and you become unafraid of being nobody, going nowhere forever,
Mm.
as pure consciousness, then when you do physically die, you know that you have not died, which is what I experienced at 4 years old and thousands of times since then,
Yeah.
and now live on a moment by moment basis today, having learned to orchestrate how I pay attention and what I pay attention into, and how to
Mm.
understand who and what I truly am, which is
Mhm.
not a self. In Buddhism, it's called the anatta,
Mhm.
Anatta, or Annatta. You can look it up on Wikipedia. Anatta is no self.
Mhm.
And Gautama Buddha said, we are, the realization is we're not a self. We are that which is much more inclusive and indivisible than any given self, even the capital S, cosmic self, which is required to undergo evolution and transformation. We are that which doesn't require evolution. We are already indivisible from everyone and everything that that that, that exists, and we can be awake as that together, which is basically what God is supposed to have been. It's not a white bearded man, obviously.
Mhm.
And so every point in the universe is uniting all points. And every point, every dimensionless point, is also radiating all information that it's receiving as it like a mirror receives and reflects. It is radiating all that information that it's receiving. Every one of us is doing this, and we're radiating everything that we're receiving and reflecting back to all other points. So this is one of the ways in which we are recreating creation by simply being awake and aware, by making no effort, having no intention to do what we're doing, but just by simply being, allowing, and accepting who and what we truly are as pure consciousness. as formless awakeness.
I really like how you talk about recreating creation. And actually, I've never really thought about the term recreation in in this deep way. Talking about creation, would you like to share, maybe pick one of the art example that you've sent me ahead of our conversation?
Hmm, sure.
Something that would
I
kind of
would
like, and tell me why you picked that one and how it relates to everything that we talked about and how, why you feel this will enlighten the listeners.
Thank you so much, Gaia. I would choose Maharaj Nisargadatta, uh, his book, particularly I Am That,
Mm-hmm.
which was translated from, I think it's Telugu, into English by this man who really worked brilliantly to convey Nisargadatta's teachings. So every 3 or 4 pages in the book is a conversation with, by and large, 100 different people. And this is considered, I Am That is considered one of the great classics, and Nisargadatta is considered one of the most enlightened masters and teachers that has ever lived. Extraordinary to read that book is so profound. And Nisargadatta is so articulate and insightful. So people come to him and they have these 3 or 4 page conversations that have been transcribed from recordings very precisely, very accurately, and with really beautifully done. And the particular volume is a yellow overall, and then sort of the rest is the writing is in pure black with white sort of framing around it. So that's the best
Mm.
translation. I forget who the translator is right at the moment, but I can send that to you.
Oh, I see.
Now, in
Yes.
this book,
Mm-hmm.
when you read this book, you, of course, enter into the conversation as though you are Nisargadatta and you are the person who is coming to him for help and insightfulness. And you empathically and compassionately, vicariously experience the intelligence that is being conveyed and shared in these conversations with 100 different people. And it is life changing to read that book. I would highly recommend it to our viewers.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, I'm really glad you sharing that with you. And I love, like, I'll be making a page and posting all the other sharing, the music, the performance, and the movie, and the other artists too. Um, Thank you so much. I think we've touched upon a lot of important subject. It was good for me to talk to you today, and I hope it inspires a lot of people. And I look forward to see your work unfold and touch more and more people, and maybe one day experience one of your transformative film.
Beautiful. Well, I'd love that so much, and I hope to. I'll keep you in touch when we launch the round the clock in multiple language for free membership to give the world access to their combined intelligence as a really fun, uh, exciting, surprising way of being.
Sounds amazing. Thank you so much, Sperry, for the time you dedicated on this conversation. You can find more information about Sperry on his website for the Human Connections Project, www.connectioninstitute.org. You can also go to the podcast website, www.gaiasartpodcast.com. And until next time, I wish you healthy, happy, and creative living. Bye for now. If you enjoy the conversations, please leave a comment or even better, subscribe to the podcast so that it can be uploaded automatically into your feed. You may also wish to contribute financially to support this work. For this, you can go to patreon.com/Gaia Orion, and I thank you for contributing and listening to these conversations about art for a peaceful and flourishing world.